This is the Simply Home podcast, Ladies Who Build, a podcast for women by women. This is Ashley Wainscott
and Michelle Mullins. After spending the last 10 years revolutionizing the construction industry and raising the bar of the contracting world, we are inviting you on our journey as we continuously learn how to be extraordinary and thrive in this industry. Now come hang with us.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 31 of Ladies Who Build. This episode, we are talking about common mistakes people make when undergoing a remodel. And some specific points we're going to be talking about today, one of them being what we've seen clients do in the past that they wished they did differently. We hear a lot about this in our client surveys, and how you can make your remodel successful. Very important. And then what's the hardest part of the remodel process? So we'll break it down in those 3 sections. And Michelle's going to kick us off with a lot of what Michelle's heard directly from clients, which is what they would have done differently.
So the background to that is that at the end of each project, we sit down with the homeowner in person and we go over their feedback. We get what they liked, what they didn't like, what was difficult. And I will say at that meeting it's very telling, like how we did as a whole. And so sometimes like we think we did really good on a project and then we might get opposite feedback from a client or vice versa. And so it's really, and that's like where we take all of our lessons learned from. So it's a really great meeting, but kind of summarizing what I hear common things that people would say during the remodel process or maybe before, we've kind of combined here. So I think one of the biggest ones we talk about is clearing out your space. So sometimes clients think that because we're not working in a certain space of the house, that would be okay to kind of not clear out. But let's say that space is a high traffic area, so if you've got like an entryway and you've got like a really big, beautiful table, maybe a really expensive piece of art, but we're not working in that space, we're definitely traveling in that space. And so I think the biggest thing to understand is like, no, you don't need to clear out your entire house, but definitely adjacent areas are really important because honestly, if it's left there where you have it normally, you are risking it getting damaged. You're risking it getting lost, hit, touched, moved, relocated. There's just a lot of risk around that, especially if it's something really nice and expensive. So when in doubt, just clear out everything. You don't want the guys touching anything. Believe me, it's not gonna be good if they do, or if they have to move it.
No, and if you think about your spouse or whomever you live with moving something that like normally has a place in a home, and that's like someone who you live with and you already find that annoying. So imagine if a stranger in your home came in and moved something because it was in the way or they were worried about damaging it. Like, you should just go ahead and do that so that you know where it is, because it is going to annoy you if you come home and you see your stuff touched and moved. Like,
right.
Let's go ahead and
get it out there, get a pod, get a storage
that
unit, put it in a different room. Yeah, just take care of it. No.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it when it's that way. And usually at the project manager meeting, they're going to give you tips because, earlier in the process, you're not thinking so much about how you're going to be living through the remodel. Even if you are moving out, you're not thinking about how am I going to move out? You're thinking about the budget, the vision, the design, the plans, where am I going to go, etc. So then when you get to that space and you are at the project manager meeting and you are 2 weeks out-ish from starting, you've just moved on to the next phase of, okay, well, now I actually do need to prep, and the work is not over, right? Like, your work is still going as a homeowner to prep, and a lot of companies like ours can help you, whether it's organizers or movers, get through that process. But yeah, you're going to be preparing those weeks leading up. So clear your schedule. Your weekends will not be at like cute restaurants, most likely. They're going to be packing and, putting your stuff away and moving things. And that's just
Yeah,
like
it's part of the
how it
process.
is leading up to the remodel.
Yeah, it's just part of the process. And you're going to be so glad that you did it in the end because you don't want us doing it. I'm telling you, you don't want these guys doing it for you.
No, you really
Okay,
don't.
another one that I hear a lot
Mhm.
is, so it is one of our requirements when you start a project with us to have all material ordered ahead of time. So you can't really opt out of this. However, a lot of clients will say at the end, it was interesting that you required this up front because in my mind, I thought, well, why do I need a toilet when we're not installing the toilet till the very end of the process, right? And multiple times people would say, okay, now I understand going through this process why that is a requirement for y'all because it truly impacts, it can impact the whole project entirely and in a big way. So before we required that, it was you don't even know what you're going to run into if you don't have all materials ahead of time, especially like during COVID, that was all crazy. But not just delays. I mean, material not being ordered ahead of time is you could always get you want to if you order it, you can still check it and open the boxes to confirm what you ordered is what you received because as we all know, we've ordered stuff and haven't gotten the right thing. And so that and then you can have time to like return it and get the right thing. Also, like it may no longer be in stock.
That that
Yeah.
that buffer room, like of when I mean it still happens all the time that when they send the wrong light fixture or they send the color wrong, whether it's a bronze and it's supposed to be brushed nickel. And so like without that buffer time where we're all checking things in and then allowing it to be shipped back and then they process it and then they ship it. And Michelle and I have been through this several times where they still ship the wrong thing, right? So you have to allow that buffer time
Yeah.
for manufacturers to
I
like
recently
make
just
their
dealt with it
mistakes.
and I ordered a tub and they sent the wrong tub 3 different times. It was quite, I was impressed a little bit. I was like, how do you get it wrong this many times? It was really frustrating.
Yeah, because you would think the margin of error would get better every time. Like, surely
Right,
this
right.
time
Not the third
it's
time.
going to happen. Yeah.
So, the, I know.
That's
Then
when
you
it's
just have to laugh.
just a joke
Um,
at that point.
but yes,
Like,
that is like a huge listen to us when we say you need your material ahead of time. Just do it.
yeah. And Michelle and I didn't make that a requirement because we wanted to make people's lives more difficult. It was quite the opposite. It was that we had the vision of a smooth running project that wouldn't be based on when materials are arriving. Because when we think back to the day when we had to keep track of materials while we were keeping track of the job, and it was like, oh yeah, did that light fixture arrive? Oh, the electrician's scheduled for tomorrow. Like, is it there? Or oh yeah, was the valve there? I mean
It
it
was a
was supposed to come
whirlwind.
in yesterday, right? It was just
Yeah, it was really crazy.
it's
So
awful.
learn from our mistakes and listen.
Yeah, and your project managers and your teams you're working with will be so much happier in general when you're working with them to
Yeah,
follow the process and you have everything ready to go. Your team is going to feel
yeah,
so much more
right. It's like
confident in
not
like
even.
what they
It's
can
just
accomplish.
not even. It's just second nature. You just keep moving. I think
Yeah,
on the
it's
line
great.
of ordering materials, this kind of falls into. I mean, so it kind of falls in the same category, but clients thinking that they don't need a designer for their remodel or that they themselves can be the designer. I will say there's a caveat to that. We have worked with some clients that are actually designers. So that is what they do for a living. And it's not just in their own homes. So in those cases, it's different, right? Because they understand that process. I will say, though, even if you're a designer, like I get it, you're saving on cost. But the reason I would probably maybe still hire out for that, and if you're, especially if you're not a designer, 100% hire out for a designer, is not, there's a lot of reasons to it, but I think honestly the biggest one is the decision making throughout the remodel process. You still are doing all of your upfront planning ahead of time. You're still getting everything organized, your materials selected, your colors, all of that will be done ahead of time. But construction is fluid and it doesn't follow a perfect process in regards to when it gets done and how, blah, blah, blah. So there are moments throughout the project that your project manager will call your designer and maybe clarify whatever the reason is, right? Whatever they're clarifying. If you are the homeowner acting in that regard, then you not only do you have the decision to make right then and there, you also have the emotional tie that goes with it as well. And what we've seen is when the clients are up to left to these decisions in the moment, it slows down the process because you need to get it approved by your partner. You need to think about it. You want to see how it flows. Maybe you don't really, maybe you can't think of another solution. So then you're in this whirlwind of, you're probably in the middle of a meeting that you don't have time to think about this option. That is what a designer's job is for. It takes out the emotion and it focuses strictly on the design and like the end goal. And so I think it's such a big deal to not hire a designer. Like, I don't think people understand that.
And then the amount of research, when they're like, well, I don't even know what are all of my options when it comes to, okay, now I can't put in this window. So what are my options, or what is best suited for this room, whether it's a bathroom and there's humidity, or what is better suited for like this type of environment? Maybe it's weather, right? It's like there's so many factors that designers do this for a living, and they already know. They don't really have to do a whole lot of research because they've lived the trial and error. And you put yourself at risk when you are making those first time decisions that you don't make on a daily basis, and you don't want to regret, why, I chose this one because it looked the best, but I didn't realize that I couldn't put it here, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what
it's
you don't
just
want to have happen.
we can't stress enough, and that's really why it's a requirement now, because we're not designers and most people are not in their lives, and so it is a requirement now to have one. But that's another thing people say too. It's like, oh, thank goodness I hired that designer. Like, now I see the purpose and the importance of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's an investment. It's definitely not cheap by any means. But it is an investment, and they think of all of those tiny details. And I mean, I know I talked about this last time, but even doing my own bathroom, right? Like, you have to think through sealers to use on tile. You're thinking through like how something's trimmed out, how the tile meets in all the different areas. You're thinking through all the options of like shower heads alone, right? Do you want a steam shower? Do you want a pressurized? Like, do you want it to always be on the same temperature? I mean, there's just so many options on the design side that you have to think through.
Yeah.
Even like
No, that's a
electrical
big one.
placement, vent fans. Like, do you want this vent fan? Do you want it to be a
Yeah.
can light? Do you want it to just be a fan?
Yeah.
Do you,
It's
right?
endless.
I
It
mean,
can
my
be endless.
goodness. Yeah. I mean, in paint,
Right.
like paint colors alone, the sheen, so many decisions, y'all. And you just, windows, the type of window glass that you're putting in, you
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
designer,
It's
and you
so
need
worth it in the
somebody that
end.
knows what they're doing.
No, no.
You don't want to Pinterest
Yeah.
fail.
Yeah.
You
I
want
think
to Pinterest win.
that's actually a good point. And another one that we've heard a lot, well, kind of in the beginning, like, okay, you know how we'll meet with clients and they'll say, um, oh, I love remodeling shows. I love watching HGTV. Like, I know exactly what I want. and that's not bad to say. Like, obviously, everybody watches HGTV, but it makes us cringe because I think that's a common mistake, is that you think that your project is going to be like the one you saw on HGTV. And caveat here, we're going to do like, there's a whole episode about this, because we're really passionate about all the differences that can be between the two. But that is a big misunderstanding of how your project's going to go. It's going to go nothing like what you see on TV, because we can't just edit and poof and you have this like beautiful product. So just know that in real time, it's nothing like that.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone has some sort of magic wand that I'm not aware of. And even after it's been 11 years, we've been doing this 11 years, and we can like
Yeah.
confidently say that is not how things go. It's not. I mean,
I
even
mean, I can't.
I don't
Yeah.
watch
It's
HGTV
kind of
because this
scarring.
is our life. We live this every day.
Yeah, it's triggering.
It's triggering. I'm like, okay. But also I'm like, that's not real. I call BS.
Even like the
Right.
pricing
Like
that they say on TV, they'll
none
be
of
like,
this
"Oh,
is
that's
real.
five
Um,
thousand dollars for a structural thing," and I'm like, "What? No, it's not." I'm like, "Where?
yeah,
Yeah, where do you live that
I
it's five
know.
thousand
Where
dollars?"
do you get these numbers? Where where is that coming from? I mean, and also
Yeah, true.
caveat, it's different in every city. So Austin, Texas is not the
Yeah,
cheapest city. It's one of the more expensive ones to
yeah,
remodel,
it really is.
you know? So also be aware of that. Don't watch HGTV. Don't read an article and then come to a general contractor and think that, or a designer or an architect, and think that that's the pricing model that they're using,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it's all across the board. You know, I mean, you could find a GC
right.
that's everybody has different pricing. It's it's just not the same. And there's a reason why.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
There's
honestly,
usually a
we've
reason
talked about
why.
this too in the past, but regarding pricing, is a mistake that people make, is going for the lowest bid. I think I think there are things in life that make sense to go to the lowest bid, but not remodeling, and not things with your home, because you really want to have people who know what they're doing, and you don't want to be the one that's overseeing it, because even if you think you know how to do it correctly, you probably don't know code, you probably don't know the standard of that city. So it's you really don't want to cheap out on this. I'm not saying go full custom, blow your whole budget on the highest end, but you want to be really careful if someone's saying like, I can do it for X amount. I would rather hire the guy that walks, like, if I was a client and I'm hiring someone and he says, I wish you the best of luck, but we're not going to be able to meet that pricing because we offer XYZ, instead of someone saying like, oh yeah, I'll match it, I'll match it, I'll match it. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather have someone stand by their services than just like try to beat the pricing.
Yeah, because that doesn't feel good if someone, we already know if they're just winging their pricing, that means there's no thought or consideration into the materials they need. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, well, did you really think through how long this will take? Because now that you're just trying to match
mm-hmm.
it, it makes me feel like you just made that
Right.
number up and that you're not considering everything. So that doesn't feel good either. Um, but yeah, I think it's something to think about, because Michelle, we've had clients reach out to us after they did the remodel. They chose to go with the cheaper option, and then they told us that they spent
Mm,
the amount that we initially quoted them, if not more,
yeah.
because
Ugh, that's the
their
worst. I hate
contractor
that.
didn't include everything. So it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like they were like, I honestly wish I would have just used you guys, because then I could have had a good experience. I could have really enjoyed my remodel, and I wanted to go
Right.
with you guys. It was a little more expensive. So it's just something to think about. People might throw out a number and be like $10,000, but they don't
Yeah.
consider
Yeah,
everything they need to
totally.
include, and then it's just going to go up.
Yeah.
That's our soapbox.
Okay, and then the kind of I wouldn't say the last, but one of the ones we're talking about here is what clients would have done differently is renovate early enough so that you can enjoy your space. And I don't think this is necessarily like a mistake that people make, but a lot of people will do a big remodel and then they'll list their home because obviously, you'll get a higher price for it, but we'll get done with the remodel and they're like, man, I really wish we did this years ago because we love our kitchen now, or we love our bathroom, whatever it is. And we really wish we could utilize it, but we're moving. And so if you can, obviously circumstances are different for everybody, but you really want to enjoy your space. It's going to be so incredible and beautiful. Like, it's going to feel like you're in a brand new home. And so if you can, try to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't put it off. I mean, I secretly don't
Yeah.
want you to put it off because
And then you get to
then
have
we
fun
get
with
to
it.
remodel. But you go into your space every day and you don't really love it, how much that weighs on you, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Michelle?
I know that feeling.
Especially when you're in your kitchen that you don't like, or I mean, even if it's the tiniest of remodel and you're DIYing it, or maybe you're remodeling your fireplace. We've done a lot of fireplaces.
Okay, so the next topic we were going to discuss is how you can make your remodel successful. So again, kind of going around lessons learned from previous clients and also things that we've seen from afar, and kind of some like mistakes to prevent in this. But I will say in the beginning, when you're talking with us or your architect or your engineer or your designer, we've said this before, but seriously, no question is dumb to ask. We really don't. No one expects you to understand the remodel process fully or construction fully. You're just not going to, because you're obviously not in it. And so we don't want you to feel confused or not being able to like read your drawings or understand what you're getting, because if you don't ask the question, it'll probably make you frustrated down the road. And so we want you to feel really comfortable having that conversation with us. So like, we really don't think any question is too dumb. We really welcome it.
And on that note, definitely ask questions about your scope of work in your contract.
For sure.
I think it's a good thing when clients engage in scope of work to understand, like, okay, and what does this mean? And is this waterproofing? What does that mean? And on your contract, okay, what does the punch list walkthrough look like? Like, really understand it so that you're not confused later down the line,
Right.
and therefore frustrated.
It's part of the process. So I think that's big to kind of help regulate the emotions throughout. I will say, as in addition to as you're kicking off and what you're expecting as you go in, do not expect everything to go according to plan. The plan is the guide. It's what we're all following because there's many hands in the process, but it's not going to go perfect. And that is A-okay. Not one of our projects has gone perfectly, and that was A-okay. And they still turned out to be phenomenal. So it's really why you hire us, right? It's to mitigate when those problems arise, that we are going to have solutions to figure it out. There has not been, in the 10 years that we've been doing projects, not one issue that we couldn't resolve. Maybe it takes a little bit more time. Maybe it cost additional funds somewhere. Maybe we needed to pull in some additional resources. But when problems come up, we don't freak out. Like, we know how to handle those and who to go to. So it's just not going to go perfectly, and it's not going to go according to plan. And just know that it's okay. That's not wrong or bad.
It reminds me of the Chutes and Ladders board game, where you think you're going on the path and then you hit a chute that sends you, 6 steps back. Or you'll hit a ladder that you're like, oh, this went really smoothly. We moved much quicker through this part of the process. Right. Now we're ahead of schedule. So it's kind of the visual that I get of the remodel process.
Yeah.
But we're used to the chutes and ladders, whereas clients aren't used to the chutes and ladders.
It definitely Yeah, that's a very good analogy because it can speed us up, it can slow us down, but it's just part of the process.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is. It's like the game of life too, where you just because you have the CAD plans, the path or the journey in which we get there outside of, following the order of operations for construction is not one that we can control. We have, you know, we don't have control. The
Yeah,
higher ups have control. Nobody,
no,
they don't tell you what the
no.
plan is, okay?
I think too, going into it, I it's like prepared that it's going to be emotional for you. And again, I don't necessarily mean this in a negative context, but it is going to be an emotional roller coaster, and how people handle that is different. So I will definitely say that we've experienced what I think to be all of the ranges of emotions. Like I feel like there are different people that express differently, and so we've had a wide array of those types of people. But you know, it's not. There is a lot of money going into this. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of investment overall with everybody involved, and especially the homeowner, right? So we understand that money is emotional, but you're just going to have to expect that you're going to feel frustrated sometimes. You're going to feel confused. You're going to feel whatever. And all of that is okay because our project managers know that that's to come and they can handle it. And they're going to ask you those questions to get you thinking. So, like, it is okay to come to them when you're feeling that way.
Mm. And you know what else I just realized when you were saying this? I had an epiphany. And I think it's that a lot of people don't like that they
Yeah,
don't have control.
I think so too.
I mean, we want to talk about maybe getting into some therapy stuff, but some people are better at relinquishing
Hmm.
control than others. And the truth of the matter is, there's just not a whole lot of control you can
Yeah,
have in this process.
right.
And that is why you hire us, because we take as much control as we can over the project. And
Yeah,
then the rest, we have to go
yeah.
with the flow.
I think you're right. And we don't want you to feel like helpless in the situation, but I mean, a lot of construction is out of control. It's just there's so many hands involved.
Yeah. 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 And you're not in there
Right,
doing the plumbing work, and you're not, you have no control over how your slab was done. You have no control over the
right.
termites that crawled through your walls,
Yeah,
right? Like, you
you got
don't
to
have
release it.
control. It's just, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
what it is. It is
I
what it
think
is.
in talking about communication is another one that we've seen like during the process with homeowners is maybe not communicating back to us or to the vendor. And what I mean is like, let's say you're living in the home and we give you an update that we're going to be at the house at, I don't know, 9 a.m. to start something. But maybe you left for the morning for the day, you haven't left a key, or you took the key out of the lockbox, or you left the alarm on, whatever it is. Things happen in life, but not communicating to us or not being available. We're not saying be available every second of the day, but if we're at your house and your alarm's going off, we're trying to get a hold of you, like those are just kind of things you need to be aware of. Is your normal day to day isn't going to look the same in the time that we're working in your house. So there are other factors you have to consider and think about. So I think that's a big mistake, is like, be available because things just happen.
I didn't, I haven't ever thought of it like that, but it's not, you're not going to be living your same life that you were, because you do have this extra project going on. So, what that looks like of making yourself more available,
Right.
I mean, it's different. Although we don't want to inconvenience you, our goal is to not cause any more stress in your life,
Mhm.
or,
Yeah.
put that weight on you in any way. It is happening in your life, and it is a part of your life. And so being available and communicating, and, um, being at your weekly meetings and being engaged or present, asking the questions you need to, it all
That
contributes to a successful
100%. Yeah.
project.
Yeah. On that note, though, in regards to communicating, another mistake people make is talking a lot to the vendors that are working in your house or hovering over them while they work. That is like the biggest no no. If you want to see your project slow down tremendously, hover over a vendor while they're working. Like, I don't even do that because it makes them incredibly nervous. They get frustrated. And I'm telling you right now, they're going to walk out of your house that day because they're not going to want to work under eyes being watched over them. And so then you just lost a whole day of work because you wanted to ask them a billion questions and stand over them while they worked. Like, I can't stress it enough. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Outside of,
Yeah.
hey, how are you? Like 5 to 10 minute catch up thing, because we get
Mm-hmm.
people fall in love with our vendors as we are in love with them. But outside of that, like that's like you talking to me, Michelle, while I'm trying to
Yeah.
email, and I'm like trying to get something done. I'm
Right.
like,
Like, we wouldn't do that to you. Yeah. It's
you
just like,
know?
think about that in reverse. And I think people are trying to be nice, and that I get it. Like, no one's maliciously doing that, but go do something. Get out of the house if you feel like you're going to be tempted to do it.
Yeah, so true. Go to a coffee shop. If you are an extroverted person
Get
too that
out.
likes talking,
Yeah.
get out of there.
Yeah.
Get on out of there. I mean, especially because not all of our vendors, some of them love
No.
talking, but not all of our vendors love talking, right? And then they're kind of like, oh, I have to talk to you, but I really need to focus on this
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
don't mess this up. Not
Yeah.
the greatest. But honestly, also, Michelle, I was going to say, adding to that is what makes it successful is you can add things onto your project. You can add additions for scope of work, but being confident in the decisions you've made with your designs early on and not changing your mind. Don't change a design when construction is started or even right before. Don't change it. It's going to
That
throw
is such a big one. And I
everything
think
off.
people think because it's small, like, I don't know, whatever it is, even if you think it's small, there are 50 different eyes looking at those plans, and you might not realize the impact that change has on the next vendor walking in there. And he might have already bought materials for the previous thing that you already had chosen, right? So you just don't know the ripple effect of that. And you could say, okay, we'll just change the plans and communicate to everyone. Well, we do, but there is still massive room for error in that because maybe they're operating off the old plans. Maybe they sent their guy that hasn't looked at the new plans yet. Like, it is a trickle effect of delays once that happens. I'm like
Yeah,
having
we
PTSD
know.
now thinking about it.
We've known this. Just believe Michelle and I when we say
Stick to the plan.
stick to the plan. And if you want to add things, great. Like, oh, I want to add painting this other room. I want to add wainscoting over here, right? But like stick to the design in your
Mm-hmm.
space that you already designed. And let's
Focus.
focus on executing that. Unless you absolutely cannot live with it or you absolutely are repulsed by it in some way. But just know the project's going to stop. There will be delay fees. There's going to be change orders and things, it's really not going to be
No,
ideal
no,
for
it won't.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know. I think we kind of
Anything
covered
else?
everything. What did we miss? What's the hardest part of a remodel?
Oh,
Probably, if I'm thinking of like timeline, I think it's like when you're like 2/3 of the way in and you see the progress, you're ready to get back
mm,
in, you're tired of living in wherever you're living, tired of eating out every day, you're just like ready to get in. I think maybe
yeah.
is the because you could say after demo maybe because it's like some change orders could pop up then because that's like after we see what's behind the walls. But I still think you're excited at that point. You're still ready.
Yeah. I mean, the second hardest part, I think, if we're talking about timeline, is when you're past demo, because it's like all exciting, like, oh my gosh, they demoed, huge things are happening, but then you're kind of in between
Yeah.
waiting for electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and that stuff is so small, even with framing, getting ready for waterproofing or insulation. And once drywall goes up, it starts to get real. But it's a good amount of time depending on the project where you think nothing's happening, but
Right.
maybe we were trenching all week. Right. And that's not overly exciting. So that's the other part. There are probably two parts. It's the beginning and then the end when you're like, okay, can I
Yeah.
just have my house back? Can we just be
Yeah.
done? Can we just be over this? And of course, I'd imagine separating with the money is probably
At the
also
beginning, like when
hard.
you give your down payment.
When you have to pay, yeah, when you have to like pay all your invoices, I'd imagine
Yeah,
that
I
part
could
is
see it.
also difficult. It's such a huge investment, that part's probably also hard. But the rest of it, you should be working with somebody that
Totally.
makes it easy
Which is
breezy.
us. We're easy breezy.
Surely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Those
Well,
are our
that's all we
top
have for y'all
hits.
today.
Obviously, you can contact us if you needed to find out more or if you have questions about this. I'm sure you'll have a lot of them. It's part of the process.
Oh, yeah. And Michelle, we were going to tell
Oh,
everyone to
yeah.
reference
Okay.
episode 10
Episode
and
10 and
21.
21, we also talk about very similar topics but go further into details about if you are deciding to move or not move during a remodel. We lay out some really important considerations with that. And then episode 21 is why remodels can be tense or emotional. So we talked a lot about emotions today. That one also reflects a lot of what could happen during a remodel.
Yeah. Yeah. We dive into these and get really in depth. So everyone go listen to those
Yeah.
if this is of interest to you.
Until next
All
time.
right. Ciao for now.
Now that you are hooked to the podcast, you are probably thinking, how can I learn more? Well, sign up for our monthly newsletter to see our newest remodels and the best tips for a stress-free home renovation.
With a few easy clicks, you will get to go even more in depth with us as we go behind the scenes with life, projects, and our team. Go to simplyhome.co or the show notes to sign up. See you next time. Bye, y'all.